Welcome back to the Mr. Gloat podcast. Today, as I'm recording, it's 3:27 a.m. in the morning, so it's better to be calm and relaxed. I couldn't get much sleep, and even though it's been, I guess, considering it's actually today, as I'm recording this, it's almost 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and today's Wednesday, the morning, so we're 4 days, just 4 days during the start of the after the fight with the Jake Paul promotion fight going on, and we're 3 days away from Kay Scott versus Clarissa Shields and her comeback into the middleweight, which is going to be a doozy depending on how Australia. It's kind of weird that we had three females that were Australian champions on to the big main event. And, well, four of them, if you include Sky Nicholson. We lost two of them, and we're going to lose a third one this week. And it makes you viewers wonder, why do these Australian females have the failure to it? Now, with all due respect, Kay Scott and Desley Robinson, they're past their prime. Cherneka Johnson, well, we're going to get to that moment just as soon as we can. And Sky Nicholson, well, who knows? And as I'm recording this, BoxRec.com already had the People's female pound for pound with Dina Thorslund being at number one. Now, with all due respect, I also had Cherneka Johnson, and Cherneka Johnson is, well, actually, here's a problem. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 27, 28. Like, Cherneka Johnson is like ranked number 28 on People's pound for pound. And because of her defeat, and we're only 30 minutes and 50 seconds away from this, from the votings closing right now as we speak, which I'm not caring about voting as much, but I am going to, I'm going to keep the track and see what's going to happen. All we know is the votings are still here because, like, just last week ago, Amanda Serrano went up back to number 2 and Clarissa Shields at number 3, as always. And Lauren Price went up number 8. Karen DeBlois went down to number 9 at one spot. So, yeah, the rankings for female boxers have been changing a lot. But technically, with all that being said, before we get to the entire event of the show, which I might skip through the preliminary fights as much as I can, we might as well talk about what's been going on in the title fight world. So I said before, William Zepeda from WBC, world lightweight champion, won his belt last week ago against Lamont Roach, as we talked about. Raymond Miratala did it. Mark Chamberlain, who squeaked out a tough 10-round fight to win a 10th round TKO against Pierce O'Leary, which was a pretty close fight. Like, August the 1st has been a wild moment of craziness, with all due respect. With all other fights and other stuff going on into the world of boxing, it does make you wonder where we're going here. We even have a new super lightweight boxer in America named D'Angelo Evans, who is actually fighting on August the 22nd in Santa Monica Pier against a journeyman fighter with a 7-6 and 3 record, which isn't much of a fight. But again, the guy's ranked at 215 and D'Angelo's 150, so I don't know why they got 2 stars. But again, he might be the next upcoming boxer right now. Tara Moana, he's having his fight sooner than later in his career. As of today, he's taking on a guy named DeAndre Savage right now as we're taking place in the Gold Star Gold Coast in Queensland against DeAndre Savage. So, which is also another, which we're going to have Yasmin Parr take on Gemma Piart, which is going to be another fight. We don't know what sanction it is. We also have another young female, also Lakeisha Woodbridge, who's a 4-0-3 knockout female who's also fighting. This whole entire show is happening on DAZN, so it's going to be on Eddie Hearn promotion. So Eddie Hearn is in Australia as we're speaking, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And, he also took on Alim Whitfield. We're going to have to talk about that fight sooner than later. But again, yeah, it just seems like there's so much going on. But what's also interesting, we're still trying to find talks about what's going on here. People say that Manny Pacquiao was supposed to take on Floyd Mayweather. That whole thing went on board. Nothing happened. We're having talks about Joseph Parker now being out of the drug scandal. Again, I don't know what to say about that. He's free. He's clear. I don't know. Even if the fight, even if he did defeat, um, the thing is, even if Joseph Parker did defeat Fabio Wardley, then I don't know. He might have still been stripped of the belt, or the fight would have ended in no contest, and he would have been vacated it. So I don't know. All I can say is it's going to be really interesting when time goes on. But the entire show is interesting because we also have Zuffa Boxing coming back and throwing us a huge bone, whether I like it or not, and because our ranked fighters in the division are pretty much on a hilarious note. Because on September the 12th, Jai Opataya will take on Noer Mikhailian for the WBA Cruiserweight title on Zuffa Boxing. Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn as well. They are fighting for major titles. I don't know if the Zuffa titles are going to come. Dana White only has the Zuffa title of Jai Opataya's Cruiserweight, and that happened early this year. But again, I don't know if we're getting the other Zuffa titles because I'm looking for maybe a couple more this year. But I don't know if Dana White's not going to put any of them on the line. I don't even know why we are even supporting Zuffa. Like, I want to wish Dana White best of luck and say this might work. But again, looking this up on Wikipedia about the bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, cruiserweight, and heavyweight. And the thing is, Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn is a welterweight title fight. So, again, I really, they better get the fight going. All I can say is we have our work cut out, and it's going to be a doozy. Okay, so let's get back to it. Orlando, Florida, we're back from the start. Sad news has been coming around the building ever since when Tiara Brown, who had her last fight 2 months ago in June against Hannah Rapp. Unfortunately, reports say that Hannah Rapp passed away a few weeks ago due to a murder. She lost her first and only pro fight against Tiara Brown, and it kind of felt depressing. We don't know if she had a depressing thing or something, or she got upset and something led to her demise of dying, or someone was pissed off that she lost. We don't know. We don't know why she got murdered. The event, just about, I think it was like after the preliminary fights were over and the main card happened, they held a long reunion. It took us so much long to get the show going and continuing. It's so ridiculous. And by the way, Alan Dawson, which I'm going to talk about him a lot, even talked about how mostly because I was on sports.yahoo.com at the time when reading the guy's information, and the stuff he talks about is pretty much surprising. And he has some interesting information that I am surprised of what he said. And saying stuff like along the lines of at 10:08 p.m. he actually said something, quote, "I'm not quite getting deja vu yet. The last live blog I ran for Uncrowned was when Anthony Joshua and Kristen Penga engaged in an up and down shocker last month. There were 13 fights in 10 hours. It was a slog. The pacing was awful and is one clear way boxing has lagged behind freestyle wrestling, bare knuckle fighting, and mixed martial arts. A lot of other combat promotions get pacing right, but boxing seems to struggle. This isn't that bad, but still." Again, they were doing this waiting for the long term, and they were honoring Hannah Rapp. And by the way, even after the heavyweight fight of the male fighter Deanna Peru and Aleem Whitfield happened or something like that, they took a child that beat cancer and the founder of WBO gave him a title. And I thought the WBO, when they said that they honor the child because he got his last extract, which means he's cancer free, when they said they were going to honor him as a WBO, I thought the WBO were going to do an inaugural I thought the WBO were going to do an inaugural for their own title in the Bridgerweight. But thank God they didn't do that. So, again, it was something present. I know what Jake Paul was trying to do. And, again, we have to honor those things. We do. But still, 10 hours? That's ridiculous. Even Wrestle Rock 86 and AWA did 4 hours. Ridiculous. I just can't seem to understand that form of incompetence. I just can't. By the way, Dina Thorslund, as of right now, on the People's Pound for Pound, is still ranked number 10. And we're going to be surprised in 22 minutes flat when that time comes. Okay, let's get down to business. So I'm just going to try to squeak away these entire fights on the undercard of the preliminary fights. I just had to say this. This event, guys, here's the problem. I really want to like this pay-per-view, but again, there's so much red flags. You have 10 professional boxing matches. Half of them are female, half of them are male. 2 of the male fights out of 5 of them ended in great knockouts. 3 of them were decision, and the other 5 female fights were decision. The thing was, the knockouts were there, but all of the 8 fights that were by decision were squash matches. All judging scorecards were perfect. Nothing controversial. None of the scorecard. Well, the main event fight I find controversial. Again, the world title fights are so ridiculous. I don't know how could all the 3 judges could judge anything. Again, nothing went bad. The first match on the show was Jaden Addison versus Dione Ruva-Kaba. The match, I will say, though, was a great open for the show. It started out with a bang. It was a 2-minute, 27-second match that started out with a bang. Our good old buddy Jaden in the white trunks against the red dude went on, put himself forward. He was slamming out punches, wild punches, like it was tomorrow. It was amazing. After the 2-minute mark came, he was pushing him back. He was bouncing from rope to rope. He was throwing out wild punches. And he was stumbling so much that the referee stopped the fight. So Jaden gets his 3rd victory, and actually it was a great victory for what it is, because last June he won a fight in first round against Xavier Davis, which was another first round knockout. And in March of 29th, his debut was in South Carolina against promoter Brian Shannon of Blue Chip, which I'm going to have to find out more about that guy, because the entire fight card doesn't have nothing to talk about. So it was a good win for Jaden. Not bad. I'll give him credit. The second fight on the show represents the real boxing of all boxing. The second fight on the show, Sebastian Soares versus Rance Ward. It was a 6-round fight, and actually the entire fight was nothing much to talk about. Soares was an 11-0 fighter. He came in. He outboxed out his opponent, and even though at the time I saw footage, there were times of body punches, other signatures going on. There were times that had some closeness into the fights, I will say, though. But again, all 3 judges scored all 6 rounds, 60-54. Sebastian Soares, or as people call him, Jorez, and even with the letter J, people say Soares. So it's hard for me to understand what to pronounce him. So anyway, Soares gets his 12th victory. The 6-foot middleweight fighter is ranked number 113, 8 knockouts in his career. This is his 4th decision. Again, it's not that bad to start out with a Gastineau record, but it's not bad. And then we get to a 4-round fight against Angelo Hernandez, going 4 rounds to win against Jose Fernandez. Angelo Hernandez and Jose Fernandez. So 2 types of letters that are the same, different with the front letter. And I'll say, though, this fight was a surpriser. So I will say, though, it is interesting. And by the way, there was actually talk about the commentators at the time when the commentators were commentating over this about Hernandez, and even though after he scored his first fight by knockout in 22 seconds, live on promoter of the Boogeyman promotion of Brian Carter in Florida, which is just another show against a bunch of just up and coming fighters just trying to get a big break in boxing. And this guy got his break. He went through 4 rounds. Jose Fernandez, he put on a lot offensive in himself. He was given a run for Angelo's money here. And I will say, though, and by the way, Shadesha Green, who is trying to recover from her injury against the Lonnie Daniels fight, and also we also have another female also on Jake Paul's promotion on August the 21st, who injured out Sio, who was another female that was also carried out in the stretcher in March. Luckily, Shadesha Green is in the spotlight. She was part of the commentary crew of this show and other people at the time, so it was great that she was part of the show. And there were great talks. Like, they were saying that, well, it's a step up to boxing. You gotta learn from these mistakes. 2 judges scored it 39-37 and 140-36. This wasn't a dominant squash match. Angelo had to earn it, but again, it was another interesting win. But surprisingly, this was actually a more entertaining, close fight than I thought, because I scored the fight 2-2. It really confused me. It was hard for me to judge the fight. And then after 3 male fights, we get our first fight with Shayla Moreno Castillo, an undefeated woman, 5-0-1, takes on Shari Brownell, who does love doing the Billie Jean moonwalk, Michael Jackson swift kick, not the Chris Tucker left kick, the Michael right kick. This woman, Shari Brown, 19-time national champion in amateur boxing, is in competition. She scored her first fight in June 2 months ago against Ashley Fox, who was a 7-3 and 1-no contest fighter. Now against Shayla, who her first 5 opponents were not much of competition. Well, even her 4th pro fight was a 3-0-1, and her last fight in October was a 5-0-2, which was a points decision draw. Surprisingly, this fight was crazy. They showed on great work. The commentators, people were pushing it. I will say, though, this 6-round fight was pretty entertaining as well. I will say that because the entire fight was surprising. But the problem was the fight was somewhat dirty, because Moreno was leading out with back heads and injuries. And Moreno was almost pulling out, doing a Sven Otka type thing, like Otka and the Robin Reed thing, where some person goes forward and gets the headbutt. It was crazy. The entire 6-round fight was ridiculous because Moreno got docked 1 point for leading with her head in round 5. And even though Alicia Collins was warning her so much, and even though the headbutt did not connect, and even though round 5 was a good round for Shayla, because even Brownell, she had to earn this victory as well. I scored about 58-55, which I had it 4 rounds to 1. If you would have been 4 rounds to 2, if Shayla didn't get docked a point. All in all, one judge had that as well. Another had 59-54 and 160-53, and Sa Brown won the fight. It was a dirty fight, but I got used to it for what it is. And then we get the Daniel Pereira versus Aleem Whitfield. And I will say, though, about this fight, I will say this, though. I'll go down on the line about this fight, and I will say this. What I find interesting about this fight is that even though they put on a great ordeal for what they were doing, because the entirety of this fight was surprising enough. It really was. Because the pushover was there. They were shoving everything on the books. There were great moments of this fight. The night was there. They were shining. The first round of the fight was pretty interesting, where Peru shows off his skills, and it's kind of crazy that they build him up as an undefeated record, and they even talked to Aleem about Aleem Whitfield of how he was actually a few days' notice from the Tura Moana fight, and that's how he lost by first round knockout. So he promised not to do it again. Again, that damage was already sufferable already. And the commentators don't even talk about Peru's older brother, Lanier, who lost against Jermell Miller a couple months ago. So it's ridiculous. Again, Peru fights on Whitfield, puts on everything. Unluckily, they managed trying to schedule this as a 10-round bout, we were told. Unfortunately, with all that being said, this was not going to be a 10-round bout. Not one dang bit. This would be the final knockout of the fight. Peru was landing out great rights and great body punches, uprights, and great shots upstairs, and even some downstairs. There were moments in the second round where Whitfield's corner was just out of nowhere. They were just telling him on to let your punches go, telling him to wake up, make it seem like you want to fight him and fight the fight. The entire round was dominant. Like Whitfield, I don't think Whitfield landed one single punch in that round. And then you come to the third round and he's getting outbeaten and outpunched so bad that this guy was turning into the next Klitschko or something. Because Alan Dawson, around 9:15 p.m. during that fight, when the fight ended, the referee that goes by the name of Michael DeJesus waved the fight at 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the fight. And Alan Dawson, because the third round was finished, great win for Peru and a well-deserved win for him. One half of the Cuban Klitschkos is what he called him. It was a great fight, great win, and even though they did mistranslate so much stuff, saying how Peru didn't hold back as much, expected more from Whitfield, he even pointed out that he came in and did his job. I expected a little bit more, but I got the job done based on who was in front of me. So, all in all, another interesting fight for what it was. The problem was, it wasn't that much entertaining for me to watch. That's the problem. And it's crazy because the sixth fight on the show, which is ridiculous, is John Raul Rivero versus Ruben Garcia. And Garcia bored out me everything about this fight. 15-0, John Paul went to his 16th pro win with only 7 knockouts in his career. He's ranked 63 in the super featherweight. 25 years old. He's fought for 4 years in boxing. 2 judges had 79-73 and 180-72. That's all you have to know. Oh, and by the way, they even pointed out the prelims because Sibley Scholes was catching up with the MVP of the head of matchmaking of Mike Lenardi, part of the MVP promotion and such, and matchmaker. And surprisingly, they were building that up on interview during the time. It was great. Interesting key players for the chances of the fights under the MVP banner of most valuable promotions. And technically, I really can't say much about the growth. Like, he talks about it well. The thing about the fight, the entire fight was just nothing to talk about. There's just nothing you can say. It was an easy win for Ron Paul. If I say he has 4 more fights left in him before he can go for a big fight, go for it. So like I said before, the last fight ended abysmal because we have to have a 15-minute break. A 15-minute break to wait for the main card. For the fights of Sharetta Metcalf, Amanda Gale, and a super flyweight of Desiree Robinson and Tam Thibault of a middleweight title fight. Also with Cherneka Johnson and Dina Thorslund for undisputed. And we also have the other fight, which is going to be the first fight on the show, Crystal Rosado and Alondra Hernandez. I don't know what to say. I really, really can't say much about the entirety of these fights. It is kind of ridiculous because of this. So the first fight on the show of the main event card is ridiculous. And by the way, I'm going to read up a lot of information about Alan Dawson because the reasons I don't like this show is what he said, and it's ridiculous because, like I said before, as he already commented about the 13 fights in 10 hours for how horrible the pacing was during to the Joshua and Penga fight some weeks ago, it is ridiculous. It really is because you have to wait until 10 p.m. They had to have a 15-minute break for the main card at 9:50 to start the show at 10 p.m. Which means that all these females that are not knockout artists, if nothing happens for the fight or the middleweight fight doesn't end in knockout for knockout killer Tam Thibault, then the entire show might end until maybe 1 a.m. or maybe 2 a.m. It's ridiculous. So the entire fight finally gets underway after about a 20-minute later scheduled for broadcast because of the Hannah rap thing for extended broadcast of the Banana Ball, which was reasons for the delay. But I don't know. Ow. Cut myself. But again, it's just so ridiculous. I just don't know what to say about this. So the first fight on the show, so Crystal Rosado, what do I have to say about this Puerto Rican? 9-1. Her defeat was in October of 2025 against Cherneka Metcalf. She won a couple fights in January and April this year after that. It was a close fight with Cherneka winning the fight after coming back from her defeat against Johnson. As for her opponent, well, Alondra Mendoza, well, similar. She lost a fight in May of 2025 against Alexis Kubicki by a couple judges being generous to her for losing the WBC International Flyweight title fight. She went down a few pounds a few months later to fight a nobody and then go back gaining 13 pounds in September that year against Amanda Gowie, who was 11-0-1 at the time, and she got dominated in 8 rounds of the fight. Months later, Amanda fought Cherneka Johnson, and that demise got the worst. And Mendoza won a couple fights against some nobodies in March and June, so yeah, both girls are active, but unfortunately, the entire fight was a squash. Because the problem was they were working on great leads, left hand, perfect show of motion. Rosado dominated the entire fight, and I just can't say much about it anymore because all 8 rounds were in the distance, and that's all I have to say. I just don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say because it's... The problem is, when I look at this stuff, I have to say to myself, this is ridiculous. Like, probably round 4 and a little bit of round 7 were probably the better rounds for Alondra. But again, they weren't good rounds for her to win. Like, the first few rounds of the fight were ahead of great earliness for great weight dominance. And after the second round was over, it was just a mismatch because Hernandez was just swarming so much shots that she couldn't get nothing done. Combinations and everything else were done for Rosado with great work of amazement. Like, after the 4th round, she managed to remain as rigid into the 4th as much as she could from the gap. Even though there was a time when Hernandez even thought about throwing a punch sometimes, even landing, because there were not a lot. But the thing is, Rosado was safe in the entire 8-round fight. Nothing hurted her. And after rounds 5 were there, and even round 6, the entirety was there. She was setting on great jabs, great punches. And, I will say this, though. Even though Daniel Peru, and even just let you know, Alan Dawson did say this after the end of the 6th round, stating that even though Peru looked great He also said, even though it offers different compared to technical grace in boxing, he even says that Rosado possesses a clearly mismatched early fight and a pretty entertaining thing. It's like, she's a talented fighter, but the thing was, if she couldn't defeat Shredda Metcalf, who was passed as a mom figure, I just don't know what to say about her. And she's still a young woman, but again, we all have to learn from those mistakes. We lose a fight, it is what it is. We have to come back from it. Again, round 7 was still an interesting round where Hernandez finally threw punches and even her accuracy was not there. She was being the aggressor of that round, which was probably a better round of the fight. And I thought she was going to do something because the last 2 rounds were pretty entertaining. So this wasn't a boring fight. The last round did wake me up. Unfortunately, I'm going to give this preliminary fight 2.5 stars. After the fight was over, judges all scored them. Great win for Crystal, and that's it. By the way, Sibylle Scholes even still had to interview Dakota Dicheva, who was a flyweight champion in MMA. And she thinks about switching in the transition for boxing, which is not bad because they even have a super welterweight boxer in women's boxing. Like we all know about Chris Cyborg, the Brazilian fighter of UFC and Pride, where she's actually a 6-0 undefeated female, and she's ranked number 3 in the super welterweight in BoxRec. So technically, active or not, Chris Cyborg is a dangerous woman that's 6-0. She's 41 years old, as a former out MMA champion, Bellator champion, UFC champion, Strikeforce champion, and Invicta and FC champ. It doesn't matter. 29-2, and she's a boxer for 4 years. And she's a WIBA World Super Welterweight champion. She last fought against a journeyman jobber last March. Pretty crazy. And as for the Shredda Metcalf versus Amanda Galli, Shredda Metcalf was coming out of the fight thinking that she was doing boxing royalty, while Amanda was taking this fight seriously. It's ridiculous. I just don't know what to say about this, because take this for what you will. Like, here's the thing, Cherneka Johnson is ranked number 28 in people's pound for pound as we speak. All in all, I really can't say much about that on the other hands. So we have to accept that for what it is. But I will say this though, and it's almost 4 o'clock right now, so I just have to think to myself what we're going to do, because I'm out of it. So as of right now, we're going to have to try to understand the fortitude, because Shredda Metcalf and Amanda Galli fight is actually not as better than, like, to be honest, the first fight in the main card was 2.5 stars. It's not a terrible fight. It's not bad. This fight kind of disappointed me because Metcalf comes in, boxing through, trying to go forward, refusing to engage and clinches and other such. That's what got it. Amanda managed to put trick on both. Now, the first round might have been close enough, but Amanda got betterness. And Metcalf, trying to do stuff to switch things up, was not getting nothing done in those 8 rounds. Because the problem is Amanda was just not in the game for royalty like Metcalf was doing. It was the entirety of the fight. The entire fight was such abysmal after 3 rounds. Like, just too relaxed. Metcalf was so urgent on trying to make an adjustment. And the thing was, I just don't think Shredda was in the mindset that night. And neither is Johnson. Probably due to fear. I don't know. And by the way, just so you viewers know, this is their first fight in super flyweight as they going down the bantamweight because they lost against Johnson. So they want to get themselves another championship. It's funny. I will say though, the fourth round was actually the better round for Cherneka in that fight. I will say though, because Cherneka did come into the fourth round, guns blazing. And even though one judge might have been the only judge out there judging something interesting, because in the fourth round, you have finally some close combat corners from great constancy of power and such assertive jabs. And after the fourth round, I really thought Metcalf had something. Amanda did throw a heavy punch that knocked back Metcalf, but it was a close round for what it was, which was a better round, and the only round I gave for Metcalf. Because after that, I thought to myself, we're going to get a close fight. No, we didn't, because the last 4 rounds were just utter dominance for Gowie. She found the mark. She was finding the right fortitude. The judges were scoring everything right, and she put on everything. After the 6th round was over, it just seemed like there's nothing to see. Like Metcalf, I could say you could go for a knockout because I was thinking something would happen. After the 7th round was over, I was just thinking everything was just boredom because Metcalf did try her best to trying to squeak through and try to see if she can actually get some leverage. But again, she was getting outboxed. She couldn't get nothing done after the 4th round. Amanda got the greatest performance. Her endurance, she put out everything in the entirety of the fight. And one judge had 78-74, and the other two had 80-72. And the thing was, Amanda outlanded Metcalf so much in the fight. Over 100 punches she landed. And Metcalf landed only half of the punches that were not enough than Amanda. So yeah, it was a squash match. It wasn't as better than the first fight. The finale was boredom. I'm giving this match 1 star out of 5 because it's a 2 out of 10, and that's what I feel. Yeah. Okay, I just refreshed 5 minutes ago. The updates on BoxRec's People Pound for Pound just got released. Just moments ago, Dina Thorslund was ranked in the top 10. Now Dina Thorslund is ranked number 7, surpassing Caroline at number 10, Lauren Price at number 9, Michaela Mayer at number 8. Chantel Cameron, actually, Alicia Baumgartner is ranked number 4 with Chantel Cameron at number 5. Mizuki Hiruda has lost 2 spots at number 6. Nothing has changed for the top 3. Dang. And Canelo Alvarez just went up to number 9, and Devin Haney went down to number 10. So that's the entire rankings for that. Interesting. So technically, all I can say is the entirety of the votes have already went on. That's crazy. Let's get down to the rankings before we get to the title match here. So with all this being said, Mizuki Hiruda is ranked number 7 in the female pro boxing ratings on BoxRec, with Chantel Cameron at number 8, Mayer at number 9, Tiara Brown at number 10, with Ellie Scottney at number 6, Clarissa Shields 5, Lisa Baumgartner, Amanda Serrano, Gabrielle Fandora, and Dina Thorslund. Again, there's a reason for that. As for Cherneka Johnson, she's still ranked number 28, just like in the other rankings of People's Pound for Pound. So, yeah, that right there says a lot. This is, I really can't say to myself that I'm finding a lot of talent here, but it's pretty interesting. And by the way, while looking up the new fights in the, okay, well, well, that's interesting. So if, Are we gonna have a fight for these two Mexicans in the light flyweight to fight each other? I hope Lourdes Suarez versus Estefany Osorio will fight for undisputed in the light flyweight in female boxing. That would be something I would really be looking forward to watch. I hope we get that sooner than later. It seems like these two females are ready to fight, and I wish it was Evelyn Bermudez fighting Lourdes instead, but man, it's going to be tough to see what's going to happen here. Ridiculous. Anyway, Desley Robinson, WBO, IBF, and Ring Magazine champion in the middleweight, takes on Tam Thibault, an Olympian fighter who does lack a lot of stuff when it comes to it, because she lacks a lot of problems in fights and a pro. You know what? I'm going to go to Alan Dawson here and read what he has to say about this fight, just for curiosity. And he points out the similar thing about Robinson having 50 amateur fights. I will say this, though. So the middleweight, this is kind of crazy that we're talking about this. This is like the year 2026. And I already reviewed the first two fights in the middleweight tournament for the 2001 middleweight undisputed championship with Felix Trinidad and Bernard Hawkins winning their first fights. And now they're fighting each other, which is in the month of September of 2001. And we're 1 month away from the historical event that changed America. And by the way, even though I've already recorded 3 episodes this month, and this is my 4th episode, and I'm already going to do the Clarissa Shields versus Kay Scott, which is another middleweight unified championship. So we'll see what happens after that fight, because we're going to try to review a good amount of interesting fights of tournaments that are going to go on as we speak, which is going to be crazy. So at this moment, Alan Dawson pointed out so much interesting information, and reading everything he did is crazy. So the first round starts out so dangerous with everything going on. The first round was just so out of the top of it. Tam Thibault coming out of nowhere with everything from snapping lefts, everything from midsection, backing Robinson to the corner, putting everything on the line. And it got worse even in the second round, where you even had Thibault putting everything, winning by knockout. And just to let you viewers know, as Alan Dawson commented this at 11:55 p.m. during the start, when the fight started, it's already almost 12 a.m. and the fight is already starting. It's ridiculous. We should be going to bed. It's ridiculous. But yeah, the first couple rounds were so utter dangerous that the third round just got worse. I don't know why they continue with the fight, why the corner didn't hint that they might throw in the towel. It's kind of crazy that they didn't throw the towel in. And we hope that Desley Robinson's injuries aren't that worse, because into the third round, a heavy-duty power punching of Tam trying to end this woman's life, throws a huge punch, bleeds her nose out of the leverage of huge power punches. And even by the fourth round, utter danger just comes in. She's overwhelming everything in the champion, fencing everything from jabs, and then come to the fifth round, punching, taking such a toll on Robinson that even after the end of 5 rounds, Thibault's face is not even scratched one bit, which is what Alan pointed out. That is until we get to the 6th round, where Robinson puts a huge blow on Thibault and gets her damaged, which would actually be the first round that might have been. And I believe the first was pretty much she avoided damage and got hit. And even though round 6 was a really good round for Robinson, it wasn't good enough, because Tam was still being a little bit of the aggressor. She did got hurt, and it just got worse. Even though she won the 6th round, the 7th round kind of got the bloodiness. She bleeds as well, with a large of everything due to an accidental headbutt. And the rise of everything, everyone is now surprised. At this moment, by the end of the 7th round, with all of these flurry of punches, this is an entertaining match. And they also timed out the match to give Profuse a bleeding from the challenger of Tam. So they had to time the fight a little bit and then continued undeterred, sparking out flurry of punches. Like Thibault just went in there trying to end it all. I will say though, the last 3 rounds were the most entertaining of the entire fight. Thibault putting on everything she's doing. She's manipulating the champion. She's putting out every single legitimate shot. And Robinson is trying to put everything she has in herself. Thibault gets it from another headbutt and starts bleeding through her. Both girls are outfits, blood everywhere. It's ridiculous. And even by that moment, the fight might have been dirty, but this might have been the greatest fight of the entire fight card, even though it ended in domination. But the thing was, it wasn't a close fight. It was a squash match, but it was like something should happen. So it was entertaining, but not as close. But if I was trying to grade a great fight on every single fight, I would have to give this a 9 out of 10 for Tam Thibault's performances. But for the entire fight altogether, by formality-wise, it was pretty good. I will give this match a 6 out of 10, 3 stars out of 5 for what it is. But the thing is, you have to understand that even after the 9th round, Thibault is just doing her own thing. After hitting everything from a gang of broken nose, because even though Thibault never boxed any farther than 5 rounds in a fight in her career and challenging for a world title first time because she's 4-0, 3 knockouts, 1 victory in 4 rounds. This was great composure for her. The 10th and final round did show a lot of surprising moments. The 10th and final round was pretty surprising on what you think was going to happen. Even though Desley tried her best to get stuff done again, but at the end of the day, it was still a fight that was still breathing every single bit of it. They remained it to the end of the fight with a bang. But unfortunately, with a broken nose, Robinson made it to the entire 10 round of the fight. It was a tough fight. I will give credit. Robinson showed a lot of heart staying in the fight, and only just one lucky punch or something would have hurt would have given her a chance to keep the titles. It was crazy. I wanted to see if her and Kay Scott were going to fight for Undisputed for their trilogy because both won the fight. Yeah. It's weird that a few days ago we had 4 Australian females, Kay Scott, Desley Robinson, Sky Nicholson, and Cherneka Johnson, who was a born New Zealand as well and first ever Australian New Zealand fighter to become Women's Undisputed Championship. So, but again, it is what it is. All 3 judges gave it 90 to 190. Thibault wins the title. And they even go to interview by them because they both hug it out. They both have their great interviews inside the ring after the fight. So they had good talks. It was great. Now, with all that being said, it only took us about a good amount of time until like 10 or so minutes. 20 or so minutes, and then it became finally the fights happening. Like, the middleweight title fight ended around 12:30 a.m. and the main event just started at 1:45 a.m. This is the moment where I question my authority. Seriously, because the first round of the fight, I wasn't... Again, these girls were fighting. The first round started off pretty decent for the minor of it. Both were exchanging out punches against each other. And I wasn't paying attention to much from Johnson's point of view and then from Thorslund. Thorslund was throwing out something there once in a while. There were times that Johnson was putting everything guarding on herself. Looking out for openings. And even though Thorslund was trying to start out doubling up jabs, but it was a tough round. It was a hard round for me to judge. Considering the first round, every time I watch the first round, I have to pay attention to which round you think won because sometimes that first round could be effective. I gave it to Cherneka Johnson in honesty because I really thought maybe Johnson won the round. And I believe the first round was a win for Johnson. I really did believe it. However, that's not what any of the other judges saw. None of the three judges saw it. And the reason I hate the entire show is because all fights ended in domination. I wasn't really on the attention zone, but I think with all due to respect, I was actually trying to see if we were trying to get stuff moving forward for the meantime. Because the entire fight, it had its moments, but it didn't show any good moments because it was a squash match, and it upsets me. Let me explain why it just boggles my mind. So, in 2025, in the month of July, Thorslund, I put her as 100%. She's going to end Sharetta Metcalf. And after that, she's going to take on WBA a WBA champion, Cherneka, the only belt she won before fighting Johnson. And during her pregnancy, I didn't know about her pregnancy. So even when she defeated Sharetta Metcalf, I had her 100-0. I just thought Thorslund won. And even after seeing about how Johnson barely won and had a rematch with Nina Hughes last March around the time, I voted Thorslund was going to beat Cherneka Johnson like 90%. She was going to win. But due to her pregnancy and everything else, Thorslund had more struggles than Johnson. And I think Johnson wasn't much learning about her styles in boxing, which might be the effect for Australian women and why they are losing their champions this year in 2026, which are becoming the choke artists than Japanese women this year. Because bear with me. So Thorslund comes back after October 25th, 2024 against Turamanouki, defending her WBC and WBO. She's still the Ring Magazine champion, just to let you people know. And then in March 31st of this year, she was at 116.5 pounds to 125.25, fighting in the featherweight for the WBC interim featherweight champion. She won. Two judges had 190, 99-91, but the fighter Alvarez Alamundenda was a 7-3 fighter. So she had to skip it through February, March, April, May, June, July. 6 months and 1 week until August the 8th. She had to lose another 8 or so pounds to go at 117.5 to take on 117 Cherneka Johnson. Again, I just don't know what to say about that. So when you have a woman that's a mother and she's pregnant with another child, a second child, the thing is, it's kind of crazy. And by the way, after the fight was over, Dina Thorslund did have an emotional talking about that she's saying that she's been the worst mother and wife because of her training so much for fighting instead of caring about having a family. There's a reason why women aren't becoming athletes as much when they're married, like male baseball players, like men would marry wives and they become baseball players and they're still playing baseball even when they're married, or even professional wrestlers. The thing is, you can't do that even being a woman, because if you're pregnant, that might take a toll out of you. There's a reason why Rocky Marciano says that sex takes something out of a man, why he doesn't care very much about having sex or even having a life while becoming a boxer. And there is truth to that. There is. So I really believe Thorslund was not the same fighter in 2024. So she was like 90-10 on beating Johnson to now being a 50-50 that Johnson's favored to win. And some people believe that there are opportunities that Thorslund was going to win by decision. Even topology actually had it different for Dina Thorslund, because keep this in mind. On topology shows a completely different side, because topology shows 59% people voted Thorslund to win, 94.8 by decision, 5.2 by knockout. Johnson, 9.6 by knockout and 90.4% on decision. She was a 41% chance that Johnson was going to win out of 135 picks. So crazy enough. And even one person did reply believing that Johnson had the opportunity. Again, both these girls are like 31 and 32 years old. There's nothing much you can say about this fight. Like, it's crazy enough. But again, that's not what we saw. What I saw was utter domination in the first 3 rounds. She was handling the truth and handling out multiple punch combinations. And you know what? After reading Alan Dawson and him saying that Thorslund's swarming style was like Marcus Maidana, I realized when I watched Marcus Maidana footage yesterday ago and looking at this fight again, I realized there was some truth to that. Like, Dina Thorslund's fighting strategy was so different than anything else that it was hard for Johnson to let her punches go. And it just goes to show you, Shredda Metcalf and Amanda Galley were 2 fighters that never knew style boxing. It's hard to find a female in boxing to take boxing seriously, even if you are a champion or undisputed. Johnson is a good fighter. Her being she held on to the WBA belt, defended it 3 times, out twice for the undisputed belt. It was fun while it lasted, but it is what it is for Johnson. Again, she wasn't letting her hands go. She was off the back foot. It was like the problem with Johnson in the fight, that she couldn't find the IQ. She was too flat-footed in the fight until you come to the 4th round, where even though Johnson did adjust, and I will say though, the 4th round, she did adjust. She did start putting on the challenges. She was moving forward, fighting in a huge passive situation. Thorslund was targeting the body, and I barely paid attention to some of those at the time, which is why I gave Johnson the 4th round by mistake. But coming to the 5th round, Dawson also gave that the 4th round to Johnson as well. And he even gave round 5 for Johnson in the 5th round as well, which I disagreed, because round 5 wasn't better than round 4. Because I don't know what Alan Dawson saw in round 5 than round 4, because in round 5, he did say that Johnson did better of blocking Thorslund's shots in her glove, posture change, and she did have more assertiveness. And with her forward steps, she denied some of Thorslund's blistering flurries, but that didn't mean that Thorslund still won the round. Again, I did pay more attention on Thorslund's punching still. But again, later in the 7th round, Johnson got flat-footed, and it got crazy. But the thing about the 6th round was actually the better round for Johnson in the fight. And for what Alan Dawson saw in the 6th round, and what other fans and what the judges saw, they didn't see crap. The 6th round was actually a better round than anything else in Johnson of the entire fight. And even though Dawson did say that Thorslund adjusted changes on Johnson by throwing combinations while stepping backwards and hitting her with amazing 1-2 4-punch flurries and such, uppercuts thrown. Again, Johnson still put on other situations into those in forwardness. So she was still putting on a great close performance. The 6th round was still a close fight. Johnson was still putting on those other situations, which was another round 1. So after 6 rounds, I had to score 3-3 for a tie. The last 4 rounds, there's just nothing much I can say. Because after the 7th round was over, where Johnson out of nowhere was just... Again, Johnson always throws a couple punches while Thorslund is throwing out multitude of punches. The thing is, Johnson isn't power punching it through. She can't get through with this Marcus Madonna strategy style of this Denmark fighter. It's been 20 years since we last have a Denmark female fighter to become undisputed champion since 2006 during the era of the WBA and WBC belt. And Thorslund is making history 20 years later. And there's not a lot of fighters in Denmark that are boxers that are champions, which are rare. Like, she's waiting for Thorslund to tire before making a move, but in 2-round fight, you're watching like 20 minutes, 10 2-minute rounds. It's hard to be tired. It's a fast-paced boxing show. If you want to see someone get tired out, have women's boxing go to a 12 3-minute round fight like male boxers, which we're still getting through that. Time's running out for Johnson. Everything is going forward for this. The championship rounds are here. Thorslund is just on top of it. Even the 8th round was still the same thing. Like, again, Johnson can't get nothing done. She can't. Thorslund is taking away her jabs. She can't go forward. She can't let her punches go away. We can't understand. So it just goes to show you that boxing will have problems. Like, if you're trying to go for a knockout, you better go for a knockout. After the end of round 8 was over, it was already 5-3. And so Thorslund already had like 1 round left for me to give to her. Because at this moment, it's crazy. Now you're thinking that Johnson has to win this fight by knockout. Yeah, you're right. The thing is, Johnson has 8 knockouts in her career. Thorslund has 9 knockouts in her career as well. But some of the knockouts she scored, like her first pro fight was a debut fighter. Her third pro fight was a 1-3 fighter. Her next fight was an 0-2 fighter. A few fights later was against an 11-5-3 fighter. Sure, yeah, another knockout there. A 9-17-1 fighter again. These fights were in 2015 and 2016, mind you. She scored another first-round knockout in 2017 against an 8-7-1 fighter. And then her other fights in 2021 was against Zelina Munez, which was a round 7 knockout. Not bad. 53-3-2 fighter. Deborah Lopez, a 21-1 fighter, a round 8 knockout. No, these were late knockouts, but still. Mary Romero in 2024, 8th round. She was a 9-4 no fighter. It is what it is. And as for Johnson, her 8 knockouts were different. So her debut fighter, debut knockout. A few fights later in her 4th pro fight, she took on an 0-6 fighter. First round knockout, 2nd knockout in her career. 3 fights later, she took on an 0-1 fighter, another knockout. She took on a 13-11-1 fighter to win the WIBA bantamweight title, round 4 knockout. And then a few months later, a 12-5-2 fighter, 2nd round knockout. And then she won a 1st round knockout against a 4-3 fighter. Like, those were the 6 knockouts at the time. And then a couple fights later, she lost against Shannon O'Connell. Couple wins, went on super bantamweight, lost against Ellie Scottney, even though the judges were nice to her, 98-92 by 2 judges, and one was 97-93. Ellie Scottney won, but at least Johnson won some rounds. Even the controversial fight where 2 judges scored it 97-93 and one had 96-94 for Johnson, but the other 2 judges had for Shannon O'Connell winning the fight. That was controversial as heck, and that might have affected Cherneka Johnson's boxing career for the time, because I really believed Johnson was the better fighter in that fight. It's ridiculous. Now, of course, Johnson's fights in 2025 were surprising. She did got the rematch win against Nina Hughes, a 6-1 fighter, even after winning the WBA bantamweight belt. And the fight was Sharetta Metcalf, 14-4-1 fighter. Even though after the end of round 8, they rung the bell for round 9, but Charlie Fitch checked into the corner and they stopped the fight, which was a smart idea. Still, 8 knockouts. Some of these knockouts were nobody fights, waste of crash, blah, 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 blah. It was just a waste of time. That's all I'm saying. So the best big fighters they taken against, yes, once in a while they took on some great fighters and they won by knockouts. But a lot of their fights they won by knockout were against nobodies, just like Amanda Serrano. So, yeah. My point is, it was tough. But I was still shocked because seeing Dina Thorslund lose that weight after being pregnant with her second child and just come out and do this, it's ridiculous. And even in round 9, Thorslund throwing out every single fury she had into that, like not allowing Johnson to turn anything around at that moment. I just don't understand why Johnson could not do nothing to get nothing done. The flurry of punches all over. That's all it is. But I will say, though, the 10th and final round was an entertaining fight for what it is. I will say, though, some of the judging scores were accurate. If 3 of the judges did score some rounds for Johnson, I would have given this fight probably a 2.5-star match if I wanted to, but I'll explain why I didn't. The 10th and final round was pound for pound classic of every women's boxing, said by Alan Dawson. This is what he wrote. The 10th carried even more action than the other rounds, but even though Johnson pressed, it was met with a higher gear from the masterful Thorslund in a pound-for-pound classic. Nothing Johnson tried flipped the momentum as Thorslund's adjustments, combinations, activity, and angles secured her one of the most meaningful wins of her extraordinary career. Dawson giving it round 4 and 5 for Johnson. The score was Thorslund winning 98-92. I gave this 10th and final round for Johnson because it was a close round. Anyone should have won that round. I gave it to Johnson. So 96-94 for Thorslund winning the fight. A lot of the rounds were won easily. So it didn't matter. Unfortunately, all 3 judges scored it 190. And forget about the announcers and the other people saying what their judging scores were. I am ignoring all that stuff. I'm not talking about any of what Shadesha Green, anyone else talked about. I'm not caring about that. Again, all 3 judges scored it. And by unanimous decision, the new undisputed bantamweight champion, Thorslund, breaking down in tears, receiving all the belts as the new dominance of the great pound for pound. She's number 1 of the great pound for pound. She's back at number 1 where she belongs. What a great comeback. Her retiring from her pregnancy during 2025, since she hasn't fought in over a year. She makes a comeback in 2026, fighting against someone that wasn't much of a fighter, but got interim just to win this. I will say, though, this would be a great thing. And if Dina Thorslund is going to be voted for a Ring Magazine Fight of the Year for women's boxing, I could say this is accurate. I'd give it to her. She's close from being in the ballet and maybe the best because of this. Thing is, Thorslund fought for 11 years. She got where she did. Johnson fought for 10 years. And all I can say about these girls, they're in their early 30s, 31 years old for Johnson, and Thorslund's 32 years old. So both of them can retire. If Johnson thinks about going down to weight class, because I don't think she's going to go up to super bantamweight to fight for any of the vacant belts, she did that and it didn't work out. So what's the point? Maybe you should go down to super flyweight and take on Natalie Delgado for that WBA belt. Does she have what it takes to take on Gabrielle Fandora, Mizuki Hiruta, top 10 pound for pounds right now? It's ridiculous. I just don't see that. Again, it's not that terrible, but the thing is, if you're telling me that Johnson, even if Johnson does go to super light flyweight and becomes a 3-weight class champion, I'll be like, okay, well, she did something. Even Lonnie Daniels, I gave up on her last year ago, and, well, she did the unthinkable. That doesn't mean that I still give credit for her, but, hey, she did something, so, which was crazy. Again, I just don't know. My final thing I will say about this is, even though I will grade this fight a 3 out of 10, the reason I give this match a 3 out of 10 is that even though the fight was a squash match, And this also came late. The fight ended. The results came in at 1:26 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And a half an hour later, Thorslund would go on interview to say that, quote, when I see people cry when they win, I'm like, yeah, don't cry. You're a champ. But it's been so emotional this year. My son is here. My husband's here. It's an amazing explosion of emotion. All the work pays off. And looking back at it, that could actually lead you to a retirement there. Um, at the end of the day, Thorslund did what she did. And even though the entire show might have not been there, again, even though the reason I rate this fight a 3 out of 10 is because the finale, it was a squash match. There wasn't a lot of entertainment because of it. The judges made it so all the judging scorecards were all squash matches, which is the first time I've ever seen that in an MVP promotion. Even a couple months ago, it might have been common. It really was somewhat common, like the last time. Because the last time, during last June, there were some times that domination came in, but we still had Yasmin Artiga and Delgado as a close top fight. Brown and Hannah Rapp, or even the close fight with O'Shea Jones and Elia Carranza. There was some controversy, but again, we just let that go. But anyway, we're going to have to take a break. It's already 4:38 a.m. I'm going to take a break. In a few days, we're going to talk about the Clarissa Shields versus Kay Scott. But for that being said, we'll see you guys next time. But as I am done recording this, I'm going to record another episode soon, which is just going to be updates on the other fights going on and other stuff that I'll talk about for information. It's just going to be a 40-minute video, which this might be the last time I'll ever do this, but just to study up on what's going on during the mid part of this. It will be my 5th episode this month because after what happened during the first week of August, because I was trying to go full on Opie and Anthony, Sam Robert, Jim Norton style for Sirius XM, people on the viewers did not understand what my fortitude is a work. So I think it's better for me to take time off in doing Mr. Gloat podcast, take a break, and we'll see what happens. I'm only going to record 7 episodes every month. In the month of August, I'm going to record 7 episodes, which is crazy. This is my 4th episode. As you're watching, my 5th episode will just be a short 40-minute video before we do the Clarissa Shields and Kay Scott pay-per-view of Dimitri Salida. And after that, we're going to do the Jake Paul versus with the Yamana Serrano and the Argentinian fighter, which is on August 21st. And after that is done, well, we'll see on other updates on the 1st of September and talk about ratings and other stuff before we get to the bigger events. Because I think it's better for me to just take some break off. I think it's probably for the best because I want to spend time going out to the beach before school vacation and then watch some high school sports going on just to entertain myself or picking up bottles and cans. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's about it. So again, I wouldn't say I hate this event, but again, every match was a squash. That's just the truth. And I just can't put that into compensation. I just can't, and I'm not going to. So all I can say is, if anything is going to happen as the time goes on, yeah, I'm sorry. But technically, all I can say is there's going to be a lot of changes in boxing. And all I can say is the month of August might be putting out more than you can chew. But yeah, congratulations for Dina Thorslund for becoming the undisputed champion. Because the next episode, not only I'll talk about updates of the stuff happening, we are going to review another historical moment of Undisputed Part 2, the real-life Sakura Hagiwara. With that being said, we'll be right back for more updates on that as we speak. Until then, I'm going to record 7 episodes this month. I'm going to do a few more. I'll do 7 episodes in September and 7 episodes in October. And you know what? As I'm going to do that, I'm going to try to count out each episodes, because I think it's better for me to even count on myself by how many I'm going to record, because at this moment, I feel like just trying to record maybe some as I could, because after 60 or so episodes, during everything else, all I can say is, the only thing I'll say is this: whatever's going to happen, I'll try my best to not keeping goofing this off. Oh my gosh, I gotta get a new laptop for that. So yeah, we're gonna go through it in September and October, and maybe until I might take time off for doing other stuff. But maybe I'm just gonna record like 7 or so episodes in September and October, and then maybe I'll record 10 episodes in November and 10 episodes again in December. If I do that, that's gonna total me up to 98 episodes. And by the way, my first ever video I ever uploaded on this channel was on January the 11th, which makes me want to do something different. So if no one on YouTube is going to support my channel, and if I don't get positive comments or anything else by the end of this year, I might record just a couple more episodes in early January, and my 100th episode will be on January the 11th, which I'll plan on just quitting this, because I'm not going to keep wasting time that no one cares about. So we'll wait to see what updates go on, but we'll be back next time for more information.